Welcome to Captive Conversations. I'm your host, Adam from Captive Wi-Fi. Join us as we dive into behind-the-scenes stories of hospitality leaders, exploring tech, operations, and marketing through the eyes of the experts. Let's get the inside scoop together. Hello, everyone. Episode 31. We have Ben O'Ryan from We Are Food, founder, managing director, we're going to have an interesting conversation today because from back in your history, there's some really interesting, cool stuff with how that's all come about. So I'm quite excited for that. But we've worked together before, so we've worked together and we nearly worked together at Source, to be fair, very briefly. But that was that brand was amazing. So. All right, so you can wave to everyone if you like, who can actually see you, and virtual wave for others. We're going to dig in from the questions to the last guest, which is Darren from Yumpingo. And his question, the first question was, sum up in 5 words the secret to a successful hospitality business.
Well, I can actually probably go one better and do it in 3.
3 is good.
Product and people.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's as simple as that in hospitality.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's lots of other things that make the businesses run better, but ultimately, unless you've got products and people, you haven't got a business.
Yeah.
So I would say that is absolutely what's core.
That's the key.
Hospitality. Yeah.
I agree, 100%. Okay. Next one is because he was talking about upstream a lot. He's read lots of books about upstream and thinking upstream.
As in thinking of what's coming down the line in the future.
Correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he said, what are you doing in your organisation to think upstream?
Okay, that's a longer answer, isn't it? I guess first and foremost, what I'm primarily doing is working with other businesses. So helping them think about what's coming from upstream. But I actually think we're at a very fascinating point in history, a real inflection point, because there's 2 very significant things happening at the moment in the sense of climate change and how we respond to it, and the rise of AI and how we deploy it.
Yeah.
And I think those forces coming together are going to change human history, change society, change our relationship with the planet in a way that's comparable to perhaps the Industrial Revolution. So I find it fascinating from a personal point of view to actually try and understand AI and what it's capable of.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm scared shitless to some degree about climate change, and not so much maybe...
You're not scared shitless of AI, just
yeah, I think they're both potentially equally dangerous. But so I guess I've always had an interest in sustainability, and with Source Market, I very much tried to run that business along sustainable lines. So I do think it's very important that everybody tries to plan ahead, both for thinking about what's going to happen from a legislative point of view, therefore what's going to be required, but also start to think about what customers want, and therefore how will your brand be perceived against best in class, and where you want to sit. So I do think you've got to think a few years down the line and think, where do you want to get to, and then put a plan in place about how to get there. So one of the things I did with one of my last roles, which was at Sessions, was we went through the journey to submit the application to convert the company into a B Corp.
Yes.
Which involved lots of thinking about how do we achieve first of all, agreeing what the goals needed to be, because there's a whole range of different goals and different ways that you can meet the criteria. Obviously, you can't do all of them all at once, so you decide where you're strongest and kind of focus on those. Then you have to put a plan in place, and you have to, go all the way down to changing the articles for the company. So that was a really interesting process to go through. And I guess from an AI point of view, I started taking a bit of a deep dive into AI a year ago. Initially out of personal interest, but then increasingly, saw how it was going to be a very, very powerful tool for business. And I was working on a food idea at the beginning of the year, and I got a co-founder on board that came from a design background, and sort of partway through the process, we pivoted we actually pivoted to once, but we ultimately ended up building a SaaS product.
Okay.
So I went completely out of my comfort zone because at this point there was no food involved.
Yeah.
But we basically built a tech startup, and I spent 6 months doing.
What was
this. It was building a SaaS product that was designed to help consumer product businesses, specifically startups. So somebody who's had an idea of how to make a better electric toothbrush that currently exists. So they've maybe their background is in selling electric toothbrushes.
Yeah.
They know all about them. They come up with a design, but then you've got to get the thing manufactured. And almost certainly for that
It's
to
a very
be viable,
different sort of swing away from creating a food brand.
It is. I mean, a lot of the, I guess,
Or is
what
it
I've done
similarities?
historically. So my first career was in.
Hold on. Okay, so let's. We're digressing. Yeah. This is you're diving in. This is awesome. So I want to know more. I really do. But I want to roll back. So we started with the 2 questions, which is great. And listen, we like a bit banter, so banter's great. So let's do the standard 2 questions, and then I'm going to do with the whole time machine thing, and we can start from the beginning because that is an interesting story. Yeah. And especially with you were there for a long time. So okay, so standard questions: best hospitality experience.
You know, that is such a hard one because I first just started to think, right, okay, what's the best restaurant experience that I've had? And I started to think about, this kind of 3-star Michelin tasting menus and, like L'Enclume kind of stood out. And I thought, actually, I started coming back to thinking about the answer to the other question you asked, what's hospitality all about? It's about people and product. And I'm like, okay, where do I actually go most often? Where do I go back to? Because surely that is about the best hospitality experience. And the place that I go to most frequently is my local pizza joint called Gordo's in Dalston. And I went first of all because it had a good pizza, and it does have a good pizza. But the reason that I go back all the time is because we've now made friends with the owner, who has made friends with my daughter, who lets her make her own pizza, which she absolutely loves. Yeah, and therefore he's created a unique experience. We feel very kind of welcomed and loved, and the product's good. But it's more because she absolutely loves the place and gets to make her own pizza. That's awesome, and that wouldn't happen in a regular pizza restaurant. So.
I also have to say that the Dalston revolution of brands in Dalston. If it was 10 years ago, you wouldn't be saying I'm going to a pizza place in Dalston. It'd be like a Domino's. But the Dalston generation of food brands that are just there is awesome. Yeah, so I think you also benefit from having some really cool, funky brands. So, and that is really nice, actually. I mean, last time, my kids are older, probably. And I don't remember the last time I had that sort of experience. And also, you're now, we have a local where I live, like a local Italian, and the chef owner operator as well. And we're pally. So I'll consistently go back there because that relationship that you built.
And that's what hospitality is all about.
I agree, 100%.
You go in the door the first time because you've heard good things about the product. Yes. And then assuming, obviously, that meets expectations, what you go back for is the service and the people and the overall experience. And I think that's what makes it great.
That's why it brings in the people and I get you. I like the link back to it. So Gordo's in Dalston. Yeah. I'll add that to the show notes.
It's the only restaurant I have the t-shirt for.
I have a t-shirt as well. You're in. You're sold. Do you have to does your daughter make you wear it when you go there?
No, we haven't. She's tried to, and I've explained that I can wear the t-shirt, but actually not when we go to the restaurant. And she's like, well, why not? Why don't we wear it when we go to the restaurant? She's like, well, because then I'll get confused with one of the people.
You're a server. You mean you haven't got a merch t-shirt? You've got a staff t-shirt.
Well, it's one of the same.
Oh, are they?
They have some very sort of
funky
cool branding on the t-shirt.
That's also about the merch. Yeah. Okay, best hospitality tech.
Oh, I mean, there's so much out there at the moment, and you don't need me to explain this to you, but good hospitality tech is something that makes life easier. So we have all of these things that are all bells and whistles and tell us they're going to do all of these amazing things, but some of them are actually quite a lot of work to make happen. So what the best hospitality tech is basically what's appropriate for a certain business in a certain situation. So it depends on the size of the business. So are you a multi-site chain or a single site?
But what about you? What have you used personally?
What have I used?
There you go. Like, what do you like? Like, what works for you?
Tenzo for the consolidated reporting.
Yes.
Because again, that whole thing of it makes your life easier by bringing everything together.
All into one
you
place.
Only need to, you got that one dashboard.
Yep.
I really rate StoreKit.
Yep.
For just that the slick kind of UI.
Yeah.
Just kind of
It's very on brand.
Lightspeed's very all-encompassing and incredibly capable, so rate that. Newer stuff, Atoa, I think it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Because it's simply going to save money and it's going to be a straight swap and it's using kind of open banking technology. So I think that I haven't actually used it.
I've seen it. I've spoken to them as well. It's a really interesting product. I think for that product specifically, it's the education piece that needs to be worked on, because we had it a couple of clients and they tested it out and they had a POS integration as well. So you just scan the QR code on the receipt and then people were freaking out that the bank app was opening. But
there's definitely going to have to overcome that hurdle.
Yeah.
But it's going to be no different than all the other new ways of paying.
Well, the question is, are people like Dojo going to start rolling that out as well? So
well, everybody has the facility to use that open banking technology, so yeah,
you never know. Okay, we're going to go back in time now. So now we're going to go way back. Okay. So I've put here, can you share your journey into hospitality? I'm sure there were lots of highs and lows, but before hospo you were music.
Well, actually, my very first job was in hospitality. So when I was 16, I got a job in the café in the museum it's called Eureka in my hometown of Halifax. So that was my first ever job. I can't remember for sure, but I think it was a Compass that ran it. So that was my first ever hospitality experience, and I did that.
It's all about deep
holidays.
Amazing. I ask people actually all the time. One of the main questions we ask when they say that and they've had a previous opportunity to work in hospitality is does it as you grow up and as you sort of like go into business, does it adjust your expectations on how you actually speak to people and work with people? Because I find if you've been in hospitality or work in hospitality, and then we had Mark McCarthy the other day, he was like, I wish the government would make people either go to the army or go to work in hospitality. I think mainly hospitality. But, so that you actually, the empathy is there. You get to deal with difficult customers, you get to deal with nice people, you get to deal with sort of management-ish a bit with speaking to your manager. And I think it changes you slightly. So as you sort of move to your next role, you end up sort of understanding. So that person, I think, did you find that as well or not?
Yeah, I mean, you have to work with all different kinds of people. You have to deal with all different kinds of customers. You have quiet periods, busy periods. It's a great experience. And I think it's the ideal job for 16, 17-year-old.
Yeah. So then from there, what was it? Uni, college?
Yeah, uni. And then my first job was I did a ski season. So I was working in France, and then I was traveling in South America. And my best friend from uni, who was a music obsessive, used to spend all of his free time working for a music magazine.
Yeah.
He kind of messaged me and said, look, someone's going to back me to run a record label imprint, which is
nice,
where a big record label kind of funds somebody young to go out and find some cool bands, and if they get lucky and find a good one, they'll kind of upstream them to the big label. But it means you get to run a record label. He's like, will you come and help me do it? I'm like, how's the hell of a lot better than getting a job? I'd gone traveling for a year thinking, I'll find myself, I'll work out what I'm going to do. And obviously that hadn't happened. So I was kind of running out of cash at this point and still hadn't had any bright ideas about what to do with myself. So I was like, okay, sounds great. By the time I'd actually got back to London, this had not materialised.
Oh, okay.
But my friend and business partner, Joe, he's like, had this record that he was convinced was like massive hit.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, great. Played it to me. I was just, I didn't get it. I was like, okay. All right, I'm going to back you.
Yeah.
Because you definitely do know what you're talking about in this area. I don't get it, but back you. Anyway, we kind of as two very wet behind the ears 22, 3-year-olds shot this record. Somehow got a record deal for it.
Oh, amazing.
It actually, we were disappointed. It got to number 12 in the charts back at the time, and that was kind of meaningful. But we were disappointed because we definitely backed it to be a top 10 hit, and obviously had the expectations for higher. But
Well, that was pretty awesome, to be fair.
yeah, obviously with the benefit of hindsight, pretty good effort as your first attempt. Then we got kind of an album deal. Then we created a management company, got some more artists on board. Eventually had a little record label with Ministry of Sound. And
So I try to find that. You can send me the track on WhatsApp, and I'll do it on the outplay for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll send you some of the ones.
Afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I did that. And how I ended up in food was I ended up. So I needed a place to live.
Yeah.
I can't remember why. I was moving out of wherever it was I was living. And somebody, Joe, my business partner, said, "Oh, yeah, I've got this friend from uni who's got a place near London Bridge. They've got a roof going. Why don't you go see him?" So went around, checked out the flat, and it was kind of great. Nice flat, decent price. Took it, moved in, and it was on Borough Market. And at that point, so I'd gone to look at it on a Sunday.
Yeah.
It was like tumbleweed going down the street. Everything looked like it was boarded up. There was nothing going on at all. I didn't know about the market at this point. And then I'd been there a few days, and suddenly it's like Saturday and the market site popped up. I was like, what is this? And then over a period of time, really spent lots of time at the market.
That market is dangerous. It's a dangerous market.
But yeah, this was back
not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. Just for people listening.
No,
it's dangerous as in there's an awesome.
Dangerous on your wallet, potentially dangerous on your stomach as well, depending on how stuck in you get. But yeah. I lived. We had a maisonette just about what is now Elliot's. Back then it was a deli called Fusebox, but just down from like Monmouth and Neal's Yard. So, potentially
you were thrown in and immersed into the love of food, I guess.
Yeah. So I had potentially some of the best, if not the best, food in London on my doorstep, and a lot of it came from small producers who travelled from all over the country. People would come from, Cumbria. Wales, to trade at the market like 1.5 days a week. So over time got to know some of the guys trading at the market, and started to understand a little bit about their businesses. And during this time, I used to spend a lot of time at music festivals with acts that I represented, and food at music festivals.
It's a given, isn't it?
It was, but back then it was white vans. Frozen burgers.
Oh my god, it was terrible.
Hot dogs.
Yeah.
It was absolutely lowest common denominator stuff. Nobody put any effort or love into it was like an afterthought to make a bit of cash. And I used to come back on a Monday and Tuesday and just moan about how terrible the food was. And then at some point the penny dropped. I'm like, wait a minute, all these guys are here who only trade like a couple of days a week, so they're looking for other routes to market. Maybe there's other people like me that go to music festivals and would appreciate something better to eat. Yeah. That was unproven at the time. But eventually gotten in with a music festival. They kind of did you end up doing the artist food as well as the not on the first one. No, we did do that lots. That's awesome. Later on. But the first one was it was very ramshackle. We hired a load of market stores. We kind of got some banners printed. Ended up kind of carting things around, but it was an overnight success. Like a lot of the guys that we took literally sold out on the first day. Spent all night cooking and prepping. Wow. The event promoter loved it because people were really appreciative. The event goers loved it. Like everybody was happy. Yeah, it was one of those moments where okay, that was a good. This idea. Is like that's and then there's a whole street food movement that everybody's very aware of now. So, but I used my connections in the music industry and kind of went to various different events. Some of which were absolute failures. I learned very quickly that the further you went from London and the cheaper the ticket price for the event, the less likely they're not going to spend £10 for a burger. Yeah, you got it. Or whatever it might be. Interesting. So that was a valuable lesson learned there. But did you still do adjust the pricing still do them, but just adjust the pricing structure for those type of events, or did you actually let's keep it nearer where we can actually? We focused on the events that we felt had the right demographic. Yeah, because this is before all the street food traders that are everywhere now. Before Curb. Yeah. This is awesome. I had no idea. This is. I keep telling people the really important thing about your history, people's history, because we had Scott from Hospitality. His history is amazing, and everyone's history is pretty awesome. I didn't know about this. I knew about what's coming next, but I had no idea about this.
And being humble as you are, you're like, oh, we did this, and this is the beginning. But it's just awesome. This is stuff that you should be putting as like a little interview on your website of stuff, because it is really important of what's happened in the history of previous and of your experience. But I'll let you continue. But afterwards, I'm gonna tell you off. But this is amazing.
I mean, like
you're just saying, we brought
being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, but still, you did it. You could have just gone flat on his face and at the end of it, but it progressed and did what you did. So, sorry, continue. I'm like blown away. So I knew that you had the next piece, but I didn't know about this.
Yeah, so did that for a couple of seasons.
Yeah,
and we did all sorts. We did Secret Garden Party, Big Chill, Love Box, some others that I can't remember the names of now, and we did then keep that business running all the time that we had the main business.
Yeah, wow.
So we ended up doing the catering for like the Olympic sailing, which was like really fun because we won lots of medals and it was just such a nice event to be part of. And we worked closely with AEG, so we did all of the catering for British Summertime for many years, all points of Eastern Victoria Park.
So did you do also, because lots of them have like the VIP tents and stuff, did you end up doing that as well?
Yeah, we did the, it was called that Summer Garden, I think, at British Summertime. Yeah,
nice.
So we did that as well. But that was fun. It was a challenge because it was a big event. Yeah. And when we originally pitched them, they were like, "No, street food guys aren't capable of doing these volumes. We need to get the trailers in with the burgers."
I'm
like, "No, I think we can." So it was a real logistics piece. Every trader we brought in, it was like, right, okay, how many fryers have you got? How many tills have you got? How many people? Making sure that all of them knew exactly how they were going to get hit at the peak times. Yeah. Were they capable of knocking out X? And
I guess throughout the period of starting. I think throughout the period of starting, you obviously everyone says you learn from your mistakes, right? So I'm sure in the beginning there were some challenges of like non-alpha and so on. Yeah. But it's really interesting because you obviously learn through that journey of, right, as you said, have you got enough of this? Do you have enough of? Oh yeah, we got one. Trust me, you're going to need X, Y, and Z, right? It's very interesting, and obviously helping them trade, because then you were there running, making sure that they're more profitable.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That was back in the days when you had to go around at the end of the night and like collect the cash. It was...
Yeah.
Glad we don't have to do that
with the bouncer next to you, right? Walking around so you don't
get... not.
Yeah.
Should have been. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the cash drawers. Jesus. Did you have people running around collecting throughout? Because it must have just been like...
For the really big events, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. You put it like a cash room.
Yeah, because then it would be 1 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night, so you couldn't take it to the bank.
Yeah,
so,
no.
You would end up with ridiculous amounts of.
Yeah, I used to do events. I used to run parties, and I remember leaving a club with a wad of cash, and my girlfriend, now my wife at this time, she said, "We're going to go and we're going to run." And she's like, "Why?" The two bouncers at the front door just been staring at you, cashing up all night, and I thought it wasn't a huge amount of money, but she was like, "We're just going to go out and I'm going to say goodbye to them and you're going to run to the car." So I literally was like, I walked out, she did a little flirty thing to the bouncers and I went woof, and I was gone. So, and she obviously came and found me, and she's like, yeah, I'm glad we went. London's can be an interesting place, but that's amazing. So okay, so then at what point did it change to, because obviously now you have all those connections, right, and all those providers and suppliers and who are loving you because you've sort of increased their business. This is before order and collect and order online and at home delivery. Well, I mean, maybe there's some of them doing at homes, but probably not.
Yeah, not. There's certainly not. Wasn't commonplace.
No, they were probably doing farmers markets, I guess, weren't they? Like Borough Market.
Yeah, Borough Market was the first, and obviously now they're everywhere, and they did slowly start to become very commonplace. But it was quite unique in the early days, Borough Market.
Yeah, I think it's still unique now. Obviously, it's very different, but I think. I mean, about people throughout the week, it's just crazy, crazy, and it's a charity, right? I think the place
is a charitable trust.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. That's amazing. Okay, so lots of events, big events. What was the next?
So one of the traders that I worked with at the events also had a restaurant business, and he'd taken a site in St Pancras Station after it had been refurbished when they moved the Eurostar
concourse
over from Waterloo.
Yeah, and
he's like, "Oh, they're trying to put a farmers market in there. They don't seem to be getting anywhere. You should talk to them."
Yeah.
So being completely naive to the world of retail and to be honest, property. I just thought, okay, great. I'll just phone up Network Rail, and I did phone up Network Rail, and kind of pitched this idea. wasn't really sure if it had landed at all. But anyway, they got me in, and we ended up pitching this idea. It turned out they were trying to put a farmer's market into a very awkward space.
Yeah. Was it the same space where it wasn't where you ended up being?
Where we ended up being.
Because it's just like there, wasn't it? It was on the.
So in its early days, it was 4 meters front to back.
Yeah.
And 20 meters long. I remember. No, 40 meters long, and it was split down the middle for a fire escape from the Eurostar. So it was a very, very awkward space, which is one of the reasons why they hadn't necessarily got it off the ground at this stage. But the reason I got in the door was because I knew all of the people at Borough Market, all of the kind of names like Neil's Yard and these the people that they wanted to talk to, because they were rail, and their experience was really dealing with the likes of Starbucks and Whistle Stop. I think they'd kind of struggled to kind of make that connection. So we spent a lot of time trying to work out how it would actually work as a market, and eventually got to the point where it was clear that it wasn't going to work as a market. I did, we got lots of the guys from Borough Market to come in and look, and we looked at, can we put a butcher here, a baker here, dairy here. But the different requirements of each, some wanted to open these hours, some wanted to open other hours, some required this back of house, some required that. Yeah. It just wasn't practical.
Yeah, so, logistically it wasn't.
Yeah, at this point they were under a lot of pressure to get this thing open, and we're kind of like getting a bit exhausted at the fact that this just wasn't working. And then I pitched the idea of bringing it all together under one roof and offering to run it. So
crazy idea.
I think it was the first time that they'd given a site, a network rail had given a site to basically a company, a startup with no cost whatsoever. But I think it was the luck, the timing, the fact that
another good at the right time, Ben.
I mean,
seriously,
in life is
you're right.
Almost anybody who's successful has had some degree of like luck and timing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But network rail, I mean, that's a behemoth.
Yeah, huge. And, it was only after I'd been doing this for a while that I realised that actually that wasn't normally how you got a site in a train station. But it was also at post-financial crash, so they probably had less interest than other times. But I'd always loved the station, just that building.
So what year was this? So
this was So I called them, I think, in December 2008.
Yeah. Great time.
And then we started serious discussions. Can't remember exactly when we agreed the lease, but we opened it in August 2009.
Okay.
I do remember a very scary first moment of having to sign the lease, but not having the money to actually be able to open it at that point. And that was just one of those kind of, fuck it.
I'll sort it out.
Which fortunately the money did we did manage to get the cash together, but again that was another. I mean, who was that with the same business part or different business partner, or was that? So at that point when we started it had 3 business partners, kind of mostly from the events world.
Okay. But you were spearheading it.
Yeah, well, we all kind of played our part, but ultimately I went on to be the person that kind of gave up the other things and ran it as a job, and then those guys were made as directors to sort of help guide the business, but they all had their own other careers.
So the first site, and what was the opening like?
The opening was great. I still to this day remember. So I had this work with this great designer called Sean Clarkson, who up until that point had mainly done.
He did like nightclubs and stuff.
Nightclubs and bars.
Yeah, he did like Embassy and I remember him. He did some amazing venues. He did
really awesome venues. Yeah. And I didn't want it to be like another shop. And he had all these ideas, so we had like such fun. And he was very, I guess, tolerant of the fact that I had no idea what it needed to be like, other than a bit of some ideas. So we created this thing, and I remember once going in because I had the keys, and it had a series of big metal shutters.
Yeah.
And it was just before we opened, and I kind of opened one of the shutters and kind of went in, and it was all laid out, almost ready to go. And I had that little moment of being like, oh wow, when you actually see something physically come to life. So it was super exciting, and it was part of the station's big launch.
Oh, was it? So okay, nice.
Money behind our opening, as they did, other parts of the station. So we had an advertising campaign with posters on the.
That's like unheard of.
That was amazing. We did. We had a really fun shoot.
Because you guys, as you walked in, you were on the left, right?
As you come from the King's Cross
Yes,
side.
You were. Well, even to be fair, if you come over from the other side, you'd walk 100 yards.
At the start, because the station opened in phases.
Oh, it wasn't open.
That entrance to the tube station wasn't open. There was the high speed line that goes to Kent wasn't there.
And so was the King's Cross National Rail open? Right at the end, that piece was open there. Okay,
so it was the dead end of the station.
Yes,
and it slowly kind of built up over time.
Oh, because the other end
wasn't there as well. So I mean, it's a wildly different place. Now. Now it's a dead cert. Back then it perhaps wasn't.
Well, see, I would come up to town. I'd hit King's Cross, and I think for about 4 years, because my office was in Charlotte Street just here, so I'd go from. I'm in Hertfordshire, so I'd go to King's Cross and then I'd walk and get the train. And a friend of mine, for 5 years, so I'd walk past, get my breakfast. Thank you very much. And get my breakfast. And a friend said to me, why don't you just go to Farringdon and then you can get the train back? So 5 years I walked down the concourse from National Rail all the way to Underground because I just didn't think about it. But that cost me a fortune every morning getting because you can't not get breakfast, right? You can't. People leave, they come out and they are just bamboozled. And on the way home, getting the wine.
Yeah.
So
we did. We were quite early on a few things. So specialty coffee, craft beer, natural wine. So we kind of
you had loads of selections.
Yeah, and that was. I mean, that was a bit of luck. I remember going and getting beer from the likes of Logan at Beavertown or Evan at Colonel. Back when they were basically still brewing in lockups and archers. And it was fun. It was everybody was had worked out that this was a new fun thing that you could do.
Yeah.
And they were not only brewing the beer,
so
but
early stages. You were so early stages, getting all these brands on the super early stages. This is crazy. And so you could because back then more and more brands were. It was probably the start of that generation of building a brand, right? So you probably had loads of people who were just desperate to get out there as well.
There was when we opened the business, which was 2009. So in the few months leading up to that, I effectively travelled all over the UK to find great product, and it was hard. You had to go to random farmers markets in the West Country, and I remember we had this amazing Scotch egg supplier that we would was in the West Country, and then over a period of a few years, the kind of tables turned. And so many people had left careers, what you might call traditional careers in marketing or finance or whatever it might be, and then gone to make bread or cheese or beer. And suddenly we were having people approach us with all of this great product.
That's amazing.
And it was, I think it was just a, very enjoyable period to be in food because it was a real turning point.
Yeah.
As suddenly, we started having all this amazing artisan, independent producers. And now we're in a really different world.
Oh, it's crazy now. Now you can get. I mean, I was with. It's mental, and also to get access to it as well as a business. There's all these marketplaces now, so you can easily, as a small business, jump on a marketplace where you can grab what you want with the minimum spend or whatever, and it does it all rather than having to go to breaks. And getting everything. Because I remember, some of the nightclubs we used to work with, they'd get their delivery for their canapes, and it would just be everything deep fried, I'm not talking about high end events. I'm talking about someone hiring a nightclub, whatever. And I remember just the breaks van turning up, and then their freezer was just everything. Everything was from the freezer. So the industry, you still see breaks now, but I mean, I bet there's probably 70% less coming from them, unless they're changing how it works. Of course. Yeah. But it's a whole generation of changes. So King's Cross, and then where was Site 2?
So Site 2 was Wigmore Street.
Oh, I love Wigmore. I did like Wigmore Street. My mate worked opposite, and I remember going there, and we had a coffee, and you'd have these wooden boards, and you'd give a glass of water with the coffee. No one else does that. No one does. Maybe one coffee company does that. You get it's a proper presentation for a coffee, and I always drink water with my coffee always, even on the way into work, and so that is one memory that sticks with me forever.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
I mean, it was inspired by Italy and how they do it in Italy, and my head barista Fred was Italian, and I think just a combination of what we've seen and what we felt was the right way to
So was that venue different? Because you did, I felt that it was more lunch driven?
It was completely different, and this was so my getting some Pancras to the point where it was a sustainable, financially sustainable business was pretty ball breaking. 50% of which was because it was the first time I'd done it and therefore didn't necessarily know how to do it. So there was a lot of learning the ropes. And 50% was because it was an operationally very challenging location.
Yes.
You know, sensibly, if I was going to advise somebody to start a food business, you'd be like, start with like a nice cafe or a deli in like a neighborhood where, you know, you don't have like thousands of people descending on you and like Network Rail with like 101 different regulations that you have to adhere to and God knows what else. So that was tough.
So you went backwards, basically.
I just did it in the wrong order. And, you know, it nearly bankrupted me to start with because we were just burning cash like this, and it was
especially with not all of it was open as well, right? So we
didn't have the volumes to start with, you know. But the one thing that kept me going was we just had amazing customers. People just told us how much they loved it, and you know, every week we were getting more customers and more customers. I have
to say that the word of mouth for that brand was amazing. And it's very rare.
Amazing shop front.
Yeah, but also even further down the line, when you had more locations, everyone I spoke to always had an amazing word to say about it wherever they went, to each of them. So I think that's definitely props for you. Like you don't have that often now when someone's talking about, I've been there, it's freaking awesome. So I will say, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time and I've been out and about for a long time, and I will say that memories from me and speaking to friends, whatever, and them going for meetings, that they don't. It's sort of like teed off. Yeah, well, you know, you can pay me later. But it was really nice because people were like, I've been there, it's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, look, it definitely wasn't just me. A lot of people put their heart and soul into that brand. You know, people, we had some great people working there who really loved what they did. Do you think that, because I mean, it's different now, obviously, workforce is different as well now. So I think, do you find that back then, the workforce that you found there was more passion, there was more, I don't know, did you involve them more? Because it's definitely changed. I do remember kind of about halfway through Sourced hiring people just becoming just radically different. So when we opened, there were lots of people that wanted the work.
Yeah.
And they'd turn up to an interview and they'd work really hard to get the job and stay in the job. And then at some point it changed and people just would no show for interviews.
Yeah.
And this became an increasing phenomenon. It was obviously kind of a different generation coming through. But definitely in the beginning, we had people that were very keen to work, and it felt like maybe power was slightly more on the buyer side rather than the sellers.
Yeah.
And then that changed. I think we still got people who were equally passionate.
Yes.
I think it's just people's attitudes to what they expected out of work and from their employer changed, and some of that for good.
Yes. I also think training as well is very different now. So sometimes training's hard. There's lots of I love Blend, which the training.
Yeah, and this is where tech's really
right. So changing everything. Like my kid's a trainee hairdresser. She's started 16, and she's doing training and stuff as well. And I think that everyone's on screens, right? So it's hard to keep to their attention. So if you're training someone for something and you don't have the technology behind it, or to understand their brain method of how they work, right? It doesn't work. So training and retention, I think now is very different. And I think that those tools are really helping people stay and be happy. And also stuff like what Pizza Pilgrims are doing with their freaking app, and and others as well. I think I love it that they're all actually making things easier. To call an HR department and trying to get information and trying to email someone and get 3 days later to the accessibility of what's able now. I think now I think now it's changing. It's changing for the better. I think there was a period. There is definitely a period where things changed, especially with Brexit and everything else. That I remember going to coffee companies before, and an Australian barista would be like opening the doors and smiling and chatting away, and then things have changed. You go in and it's just kiosk in your face.
Yeah.
So
I mean, in my opinion, hospitality is diverging, and you've either got the functional or you've got the experiential. Yeah. And we're not. Yeah, it's still very messy at the moment. But functional is going to become increasingly automated, and have fewer and fewer people working in it because we just want to go and get the thing that we want. We want to get it quick, and we want to get it cheap.
Yeah.
And then the other end of the spectrum is going to be experiential, where we want to go out and have an experience. And we've seen so much go on in hospitality that's more experiential, and that's what people want. So if I'm going to have an occasion, and it's a date or a birthday or an anniversary, and we're going out for dinner. I want to have an experience. So actually, potentially, although there'll be some tech in some ways, we're going to want more of that human interaction because it's more of an experience and a special occasion.
Yeah, I think tech can obviously help with that too.
It can definitely support.
But I think you're right. I think those touch points are really important, and I think. I'm the same. If I go to a restaurant for an experience, I'm going to want that banter, that conversation.
Yeah. What tech needs to do is free up people from doing the mundane and repetitive, so that they can focus on the customer service. So rather than having to run around processing orders, for example, or you actually have more time to sit with a guest, and talk through the menu, and find out what they might like.
I find it kind of thing. So my local Italian has a POS, and they've got the order and stuff, and they've had it for about 6 months. And it's one of the newer ones, and the guy came up to me, and I've been there loads of times. They all know me, right? So I think I'm the only one because it's a local. I tip, the service is awesome, so I always tip. My friends are like, "Why are you giving tip because service charge?" I'm like, "But it was amazing." Anyway, they got it, and when they started getting it, the guy was taking the order, and he was like that, like head down. But like he was playing a game on his phone because they're about the phone size now, right? So I said when he's finished, I was like, "Try your best, just try, to look at us." And then take the order like that, because that's the hard piece, right? Because you want to get that eye contact, but also you want to get the order in. So I think that little piece, I was talking to someone else the other day that has a restaurant, they write down the order, and as they walk away, they basically whip out the device and then tap it in.
Yeah, so, I mean, tech can solve that. You should just be able to speak into it. So you'll be having the pasta with the lamb ragu, and then after that, you'll like that. So you can. It's a way of repeating.
No, they just have a button to press here, right? So then it records them. I like that. And any allergens, I like that. Mm-hmm. That's clever. Is that the next satire? That sounds black.
No, maybe.
You heard it here first. Okay. Sorry. Let's move on to. So Wigmore Street was more of an eatery / also because you had products there too, but it was very much.
I mean, it was a very interesting. So I had very much, because of how difficult it had been getting some Pancras up and working, and by the time it was working, it was a behemoth. It really was a machine. I wanted to do another station.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. Let's press repeat. Right? Yeah. That's been hard work. Let's keep it as close as possible to the thing that we've got working. And we'd initially raised some money crowdfunding, but then we had a VC come on board, which we wanted because this is professional expertise. This is how we're going to grow the business. And they were like, "Look, we think you should do a high street site because if you can prove it works on a high street site, boom, you can do. There's so many more locations you go into." We drank the Kool-Aid. We were excited by this. So we did. We went out and found a high street site. But what we didn't fully appreciate at the time, we were buying expensive product and selling it at... It was expensive compared to the cheap product that you could get in other shops. But actually, we weren't putting a massive margin on it. But we were making profit because we were doing huge volumes.
Right.
So, we were, instead of operating at the kind of 75-80% GP that you would expect of a restaurant or cafe business, we were operating more like a 60% GP. But because of the volumes, this was still a profitable business. What we didn't fully appreciate was how much lower our revenues would be and how much higher our operating costs would be going into more of a service-orientated environment, like a high street.
Yeah.
So it took us a while to then adapt the business model to still be true to what we started with, but actually make it financially viable. And that was hard.
Yeah. And where was that? What location?
We did eventually do it in Wigmore Street, but it was a case of changing the menus.
Yes.
Like actually having menus that people would order from, having different pricing for, eat-in and take-out and other things as well.
Yeah, so that place was a hybrid, wasn't it? It was very much because you could still grab what you wanted to grab from the awesome produce, but there was loads because you're seating all the way around, didn't you? Of was it? Did you have? Yeah,
we had seating all the windows. No, with the benefit of hindsight, had I known what I know now, I would have created a subsidiary brand like Source Cafe rather than try and call it Source Market, because we started at Source Market.
Yes,
it was to start with a produce market, and we definitely changed that as consumers demanded more food to go rather than food to buy and take home. We should have kept and done more station sites that were more markets.
Yeah, because the volume, right?
With the volume and more actual retail, and then have more of a cafe brand that was specifically cafe products and less of the retail, because you need to get a higher GP for it to be viable as a business model.
Yeah. And then into source to own brand. Did you do a source to own brand or not?
We did some things, yeah.
Yeah.
We did look into it, but at the time there were very few people kind of making money out of doing delivery or e-commerce.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that we had the scale for that.
So Wigmore Street number 2.
Wigmore Street number 2. Then we opened in Victoria, and we have Barbican.
Where in Victoria was? Oh no, it was. I know where it was. Yeah. So it was in Nova, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, that Nova place. Oh. Nova,
yeah,
Victoria.
That was problematic. The whole scheme did not open as it was meant to open.
No.
And all of us, nearly all of us anyway, in there struggled. Because there was not the through footfall that there should have been, because half the site was still open.
And the resi was like nothing.
Yeah.
It hadn't been finished, right? So I remember, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the walkway in the middle, when the wind hits.
Oh, it's a real wind tunnel.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we still work with the Stoke House, who is still there.
Yeah.
And I think they have to lock down their outdoor seating, because literally things just fly away.
Yeah.
It's like the architects were like, nah, you'll be fine. And I go whoosh all the way through. But that was cool, because I remember going there and you had humongous food area, so you had trays? I don't remember. You could literally had a huge food area. So was that again? That was a mixed bag there, right? But it was still more food.
That was again a hybrid. We had a food to go counter and then a coffee.
Yeah, you had the high tables.
Section. Yeah, the high tables.
Yeah, I remember. Coffee was awesome.
Trademark feature. Yeah, coffee was. I mean, you go down the rabbit hole and you constantly want that's something that's very hard to get right consistently. It's easy to get right when you're not busy.
Yeah.
And you've got your kind of A team. What's hard is doing it consistently well all of the time.
Yeah.
And then that just became a challenge.
This is before all the millions of coffee shops arrived, to be fair.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, we started working with Monmouth when we opened in 2009, and Square Mile were around then, but I mean, almost nobody else.
Yeah.
And then gradually. All of these roasters, the coffee shops came on the scene, and it became much more competitive.
Massive.
In a way, it was a good thing, because people started to have an appreciation of good quality.
Yeah, they went around the corner. This is dog shit, and then they come back to you and they go,
there was a point in the early days, because I just thought, well, we'll capture some people who are coming here to buy things, and they might have a coffee while they're here.
Yes.
Where I put like a 2-group Marzocco in a back corner.
Yeah.
So good coffee machine, but not necessarily. We're not going to do huge volumes.
Yeah.
And there was a point when one of my investors came in and said, "You look at the queue. You're not serving people fast enough." I was like, "Oh, I've really worked hard on this. Let's." And I went and did a clicker, and we were serving more people than Starbucks from much inferior equipment.
Yeah.
But we just didn't, because we never planned for that volume. So when we refitted the place, we obviously did it completely differently.
Yeah.
Then it was
okay. So number 3 was Victoria. Then
Barbican.
Okay.
We had a cart with Eurostar. They were looking at changing all the layout of the.
Oh, so in the station.
In the station.
Okay.
Yeah, and then ultimately we went kind of tried to go back into transport, and we opened on the M1.
Oh, where?
At Leeds.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So in what, service station style?
Service station, yeah. So a new service station.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Now that's early doors as well, to be fair. You're sitting there with probably Burger King and Ed's Diner.
Originally, when we got pitched it, I was just like, service station, that's not the right fit for the brand. No. And then kind of let it sit. And I'm like, okay, well, when we opened in the train station, the food offer was Burger King and Whistle Stop and Upper Crust.
Yeah.
So actually, we went into somewhere where actually the offer was
you'd done it before.
Kind of mediocre, and we kind of pioneered better quality food in a busy environment. I'm like, why are service stations any different? That was the logic.
Yeah.
And I think it's valid. Unfortunately, COVID hit quite soon afterwards.
Oh, okay, so that was very near. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So then so had you already opened in Leeds or not, or just?
The site in Leeds was open.
Okay, fine, and then obviously. Then we had that time, which screwed a lot of people.
It did, yeah. Hospitality was, particularly hard hit.
Yeah. And then, so what happened? Obviously, recovery end was.
Well, I actually left the business in 2019.
Oh, okay.
So it was coming up to my 10-year
anniversary. Yeah.
And it was the first year I had not loved what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I guess the business had become less of a scrappy startup and much more, an operational business. And I felt I wasn't adding as much value as I had been perhaps in the past.
Yeah.
but also just felt that maybe it was time to do something else. And it was, this was over a long period of time, but it was quite a difficult process because
10 years. That's.
Well, I was also I was so tied up. It was my baby. It was my business.
Yeah.
Trying to separate like me from the brand in my head was quite difficult. But we hired in a managing director to run the business. We had a kind of, I don't know, like a good 6-month handover.
Nice.
And then I went non-exec, and then I went in as co-founder of and CEO of a wellness startup.
Yeah.
So I started to lead the business in sort of summer 2019, and then I started on the wellness startup in December 2019. So obviously at this point, life plan, it's all going exactly. Scott, who came in as managing director, he was MD of Bills, so he'd taken that business from 7 to 60 odd sites. So that was exactly what the plan was with Source.
Yeah.
And kind of, now we've got the model, press repeat, do scaling.
You'd set the template out quite nicely, to be fair.
I thought I had.
So, okay, so then into wellness that wasn't really wellness, I guess, did they flick to online, and what happened?
Well, it was an idea. So a very smart lady had been working on this for a couple of years, and she basically wanted somebody who'd had the experience of actually taking an idea and bringing it to life to then get it up and running. So I came in as co-founder to do that, and then we kind of redid the business plan. I put an investment deck, and it was March 2020, and we were just about to go out to investors to raise money, and then obviously everything got put on ice because everybody didn't know what was going on.
Yes.
I felt that this was the perfect time to launch a wellness business, but my background had been launching a food business as we'd come out of the financial crash.
Yeah.
So for me, chaos is opportunity.
Yeah.
And I was, when you start your own business, you don't have the data, you don't have the research.
No.
You kind of have to operate on gut to some degree. And obviously that's based on actual.
You like a bit of chaos.
Yeah, it's opportunity. We would not have got that site in St Pancras Station had it not been post financial crash.
Yeah,
so there would
absolutely.
have been bigger businesses with Covenant that would have been that fits our model. We'll take that site.
Yeah, but would it, because it was a freaking weird location?
Maybe there is. I think there is that.
But you're right. You're absolutely right. I think right time, right place, but also, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah. There is actually now another business that's taken very much the same idea that we were working on, not copied it, just to be clear. They just happened to be doing the same thing at the same time, and is doing very well with it. So it was definitely the right idea at the right time.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunately.
But now their rent's a little bit more.
I think they did all right. I think they hadn't actually signed up to any leases.
Okay.
So yeah, they got the timing kind of spot on. Yeah.
So then wellness, what happened there?
So yeah, that was the business that we never got off the ground.
Okay.
And it was a direction of travel that I was personally very interested in, because having spent years in food, I very much made the connection between food and health.
Yeah.
And that had opened my eyes to just generally the category of wellness. Wellness was booming. We were all taking more interest in our health. It felt like there was a big opportunity there to create a new brand.
Yes.
But COVID hit. I ended up for the first time in my life without having a full-time gig on, which had its upsides for sure. But then I met Dan, ex-managing director of Deliveroo, who had just started his business Sessions with Ian Banks, from his ex-CFO of Solar House, and they were about to open a food hall, and they wanted somebody to actually kind of do the whole customer experience and the food side. Yeah.
When did you get in there? Because they had some investment prior, right? And then
so they'd raised some money from in Bieber.
Yes.
And they'd been fucked by
of course
COVID, so they'd got this amazing site.
Yeah.
And
it's like 20%, like it was like 20% built. Right? I think I remember.
They did it as a pop-up.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a bit like us doing the first markets. When we worked. That's where we met. So we worked together. I remember going down there and just seeing the pizza oven built and the bar, and I think and then structure. Obviously, you had flooring and some stairs. Mm-hmm. That's all I remember being there. Well, they had a cash to do it properly, and then COVID hit.
I know,
and then
I was taking
that cash fell out.
Yeah.
So they had to decide, well, what do we do? And I think they did, considering the situation and did an amazing job that ultimately turned out to be the right decision. So.
So we obviously helped. I spoke to Dan. I got introduced to Dan. I could just listen to him talk forever, right? Because Dan he's one of those people that you can, similar to you, to be fair, but he can talk and you're bought in. So we had this
very convincing,
amazing. So we had the conversation, and then obviously because we have the tech side of the business. We helped him with some consultancy with the POS and blah blah blah. I remember going down there and having a look at the plans and everything else. And I remember the EPOS company, Good Till Sum Up, which they are now, and they were one of the first to do the ordering. Thank God that we had that option as well. But I remember them saying to me, "Can you go and do our stuff as well? If you're going to go in and put some kit in and Wi-Fi bits and bobs, can you just do our stuff because we don't have anyone?" And I was like, "Sure." So I got in my car, had all the bits, drove down. I went in, held my breath, put my visor on because it was early doors. Builders around, and not much PPE with builders because they don't really, they're doing their thing. Went in, locked myself in the data cabinet, blah, 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 ran around, did all the stuff. But what I loved is that the true nature of Shelter Hall, they were like shelters. They built these shelters, and it was, even the traders were like on MDF tables. Do you know what I mean? And it opened, it was awesome. Do you know what I mean? Because they thank goodness they opened at a good time when everything was sort of like partial reopening, and they were one of the first people to do the the QR ordering. No one was doing it. No, and no one knew. People knew about it, but it was massive against it. I remember going there and seeing like a 70-year-old guy ordering a lager and like shandy lager, shandy whatever, for his wife, and on his iPhone, it was amazing.
I mean, as you know, that was not as straightforward. We had a lot of resistance to that, but we did actually very quickly get almost all of the orders initially through the QR codes and then later through the app.
Yeah.
And we had huge volumes there, and we were definitely kind of ahead of the curve.
I think way ahead. It's like it was again.
Really big thing there was multi-vendor ordering.
Yeah, it didn't exist.
I'm pretty sure we were first on that.
No, it didn't exist. You couldn't do it. You'd have to have different queue. You couldn't do it. Literally to the point. I think only recently, like a year and a bit ago, the platforms here can now do it, and others are still struggling to build it.
Yeah, it's quite complex working it all out behind the scenes. So I completely get it.
Yeah.
But I think I felt that from a customer experience point of view, it was essential, and Dan was not one to not beat down a supplier to get it done.
Yeah.
A combination. To be fair to Good Tills, they pulled that out of the bag.
Well, to be fair, I think back then Ollie was still head in the game, and still before Sum Up. So I think they were. My best mate had a restaurant with Sum Up with Good Till, and he was loving it. As soon as you guys had the ordering, I was like, mate, got switches on now, and he did. And they pushed that out super quick. There were some challenges with stock and other bits and bobs, which are hilarious. But so on. But in the iteration of whipping something out that quickly, especially for a food hall. I mean, we already worked with other food halls that had never even done that. So I think that was amazing. But what was it like starting there with those limitations?
It was a very challenging but very fun project.
Yeah.
Going in and opening a brand new food hall as we came out of COVID. So it was a rapidly evolving situation. So initially I went in just as a consultant, really, to help them out. And then very quickly it appeared as like a very meaty project, but also potentially a very exciting business. So I kind of jumped in full time and led the whole project. So we had to change the design, get it all because of but the builders were about to go on site, 2 weeks later. So there was a huge amount to do, but the team were amazing. Everybody really wanted to make it happen. Everybody was excited about it. And we just dealt with everything as it came along, whether it was ping gate or, there were the restrictions for where you could or couldn't eat and who with and who not. We just sort of dealt with it. But, it was a great site and it remains a great site. And there was just this latent demand to get out there and have an experience that obviously we benefited from. So,
especially, that location, to be fair, it's been there for years and years. I didn't even realise it actually goes under the flyover, like under the underpass. Mm-hmm. All the way to the back of potentially where the buildings start. Yeah. It is humongous.
Yeah. 15,000 square foot.
Just and the out store space, and obviously now, then more investment came in, and they've changed it. It looks so different. Like, it's like chalk and cheese of what it was to what it is now, right?
Yeah.
But still opening a food hall just after lockdown and being a massive blast. So it is the known place in Brighton, right? So then what happened from there? Then it went from, okay, so we're a food hall, but now we're not just a food hall. We're the real part of the business. Well, we're going to be a food brand, sort of distribute food brands, basically.
So the original plan was to use food halls as incubators.
Yes.
So my job was to put a food hall in each region. So we kind of targeted 10 locations around the UK, and the idea was we'll put a food hall in each.
Yeah.
So we'd got a pipeline of food halls at different stages, be it acquisition, design, legals, whatever. Shelter hall being the first. And the idea was that we fitted out the kitchens. We made them available completely free of charge to talent. They came in, they paid a percentage of earnings, and then we used the data to assess who had the potential to go on and do more things. So it wasn't just outright sales, but it was also like
the thought process behind it.
There was a lot more that we analysed, and then the idea was that you take that talent that had the potential to do more, and then we used our collective experience in hospitality. So, across the board, whether it's Ian on the finances or Liv or Dan, there was a lot of expertise in that business, and then we helped create a product looking at everything from supply chain to menu optimization to marketing to brand that we could then license to third-party operators for them to make in their own kitchens. And that was what was truly scalable, because you could take a brand, and once you've really nailed it, you could then put it in 100 locations in a couple of months.
Yes.
The only real thing that held it up was just making sure that you trained the operator in how to operate the brand, which was, generally you could do it in a day, but that was the only thing that kind of impeded the speed at which you could do this. And having had a bricks and mortar business with Source Market, and knowing how difficult and how slow it is to scale a bricks and mortar business, not just because of the physical time to fit it out, but also the capital required to do so. This is a very exciting model.
On that note, so where I live, a friend of mine was doing events for he's an events company, but he opened a restaurant on the high street, really nice restaurant. He's just sold it, and then now taking it back because the guys are making an absolutely horrific big zero of it. So he called me and he's like, I said, and I mentioned sessions, and I was like, he goes, we're only going to open for like a late night bar, we're going to open from late and do tapas and so on. I said, well, you're not going to open during the day or even for dinner? Not really, but we'll have like tapas. I was like, it's got a not bad sized kitchen.
Yeah.
So I mentioned sessions to them, and he was like, oh, didn't that restaurant down the road do it before they closed? I was like, yes. And it was like the amount of food coming out of that place, because that place wasn't open during the day, or it was only open on the weekends, and it's
it very much depends on obviously the capacity, the size of the kitchen,
but there's so many spaces that just not doing nothing.
I think on average it would add 150 orders a week, and if you think the average order size is 25 quid, it makes a material difference to both top and bottom line of a business.
100%. I think that, and then were you there? Were you there when they bought the served up? Sorry, or was that after?
That was after I left.
Because now it's all wired into tech, right? So they get the tech as well.
Yeah.
Like it's just like that.
I mean, really, what you need to just simplify it. You need to simplify it for the brand.
Yeah.
So that all they do is focus on creating great product, and communicating it through marketing and branding to customers, and then the operator just needs to be able to get on and actually make the food and get it out to customers. So you need to provide all the tech. You need to, provide the integration so that they've got like one screen that they look at, one printer that comes out, one place that all they're reporting so they know what's going on. You used to go into some of these places and there was, multiple screens.
Oh, it's like Starship Enterprise, right?
It's like a 4 square meter kitchen. Yeah, it's like mental.
Yeah. So, okay. So, you left before that acquisition. So food hall was open, brands were being created, and then it was on to what you're doing now, or did you do something else?
So more or less what I did. I actually planned to take a bit of time off because sessions was a lot of fun, but the pace was pretty insane. In the course of 18 months, came out of COVID, opened a food hall that very quickly became a 10 million revenue business. I built I was like the sixth hire, I think, at Sessions. And then when I left, I had a team of like 300. In 18 months, did the whole B Corp, opened some dark kitchens, created, worked on the creation of various food brands. So it was like...
What was your favourite food brand? Do you not have one?
Well, there was some that we literally worked with somebody to create it from the start.
Yes.
Somewhere it was somebody else that came in and we just helped them. Like, for example, Patty and Bum was a great burger brand. Then I've forgotten the name of it now, but we did a Korean brand that Tiger and Rabbit.
Yeah, okay, I remember that one. Because that's when they put that into Islington, didn't they?
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, the bibimbaps, that was genuinely a good product, and actually one that really worked well on delivery in terms of like it being like a suitable product for that. So that I was involved in like every stage of that. So that's always really fun to go from like.
It's so cool to take a concept to creation, and especially with the team that you had as well, because there's lots of different input to the like where everyone's been, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like a production line. It's like it literally hits like, okay, product onto the next, and then pop it out. Mm-hmm. I think that's what I see the company to be like. Okay, so then did you take a break or not?
No. So. One of the projects that we'd sort of been looking at doing but then didn't was Old Sessions House, which is a private members club in Clerkenwell.
No link to the name.
No link to the name. It is. There's a story behind that, but that's one for another day. But no, they're completely separate, and just by chance were they linked. But it was an American real estate business called Notel that up until COVID had just been doing your regular offices. And then they'd realised they needed a different product to entice people back to the workplace post-COVID. So it needed to have F&B. It needed to have, different types of space for people to, have meetings or like, do deep work, etc. So they asked me if I would help them get that open. So I was like F&B project director for that, so help them with the strategy, the project, getting it up and running. Well, it's a truly, probably one of the most beautiful places.
Yeah, it does look pretty.
Work, so that was nice. Dean, who did all of the oversaw the design, was like amazing to work with, and each of the ops. So yeah, that was a fun project. And then since then, I've done sort of various consultancy projects. Ranging from... So
did you start that one? Did you go in-house with them, or did you do that as a consultant?
I did that as a consultant.
Okay, so that was the first tee into what you are now with We Are Food.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so and then that was a good full-time project for a good few months until we got it open. Then took a little bit of time off, and then kind of been a consultant ever since.
And now you're helping people.
Yeah.
Nice. So, and what's that like? Because you're now obviously sitting on the top, right? Rather than obviously you are sitting with them. But is it interesting seeing the positive change that you're, because you go in with fresh eyes, right? You've had a little bit of experience and a little bit of challenges back and forth, and from being thrown into different places. Is it weird going in and actually, or is it, I don't know, gratification? I guess it's. I don't know. Is it what's the feel like of going in and actually going in and making a positive change?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's nice realizing actually what you have learned over the years. You're like, oh gosh, I'm not sure how you would do that, and then you're like, oh, actually no, I could probably do how you do that. And it's nice being able to work in all different kinds of businesses that run all different kinds of ways.
Yeah.
And I find I've worked with a number of businesses that aren't hospitality, but have come to the point that they've decided they need F&B as part of their offer.
Yes,
and that's always interesting because they come into it like full of energy and ideas, but actually not really with any of the know-how how to do it.
Yeah,
hospitality is such a funny industry because we all have experience of hospitality because we all eat in restaurants and go to cafes.
Yeah,
so everybody has an idea about how it should be run. And the reality is, although it seems like it should be simple, making a plate of food and putting it on a table, the actual ops is, as everybody in hospitality knows, really difficult. And
the customer journey and everything else as well, right? So I think...
and it's very competitive. I mean, I doing the presentation the other day and I looked at the stats, and 60% of restaurants do not make it through their first year, and 80% have failed by year 5.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know if you would get any other industry with that Fairly great.
That's so...
It's partly because a load of people go in with passion, but not necessarily the know-how.
Yes.
But it's also because it's incredibly tough. And it's only got tougher since COVID because the costs have got higher.
Yeah, and even more now, to be fair, and staffing costs and national insurance and everything else. So lots of letters out there to the... We won't touch on that. But I think the nice thing we see because obviously I know you and I know lots of other people, the benefit now compared to years back, there weren't as many consultants that were just easily approachable or to bring into the business. And before there were thousands of pounds, like no one had the money for it. So I think now that what I love, like as you were talking about Tenzo did their events, right? All the consultants come together and, and there's lots of partner networks out there. So like, some of the pod companies like Lightspeed, for example, will bring partners together. And that's what I love now. There's definitely this barrier to entry. Or if someone's got a food idea, they can call you and actually you can scope it out and see if there's a reality, right? Back then you'd be like, you'd be like I found a venue, there's a good deal. Let's see if we can make it work, and it's harder now than it was back then because everything's more expensive. So I think it's really nice that there are lots of consultants out there and partners as well. So if you're doing one thing and you're not an expert in that, there's lots more linking together now, bringing people in and joining together to work on a project, when I don't think that was very much there back then. So I think lots of people have exited the doing what you were doing previously and doing what you're doing. And I love that. I think that's awesome. I wish there was more of a network out there of like, you could type in a website. I think I might build it now. You have a little website, you go, I've got this idea, and then it would just pop out with those people who are like suited. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's really important. And you're helping brands, right? Especially if they get to like 1 to 3 sites that when they're not sure if they're going to hit the 4th or 5th, there's that little barrier of like, oh God.
There's a huge, I don't know if it's so much a barrier, but there's a huge change that a business needs to go through from, depending on exactly what the business is, let's say 1 to 3 sites where you can basically manage it yourself as a founder. You can be on top of everything, to something like 10 sites when you're probably big enough to employ an experienced team. That transition from like 3 to 10 is really difficult because you either need to invest up front on the systems and processes and team, which is, obviously can be a bit of a gamble. You need the capital to be able to do it, or you try and kind of cobble along, and then quite often you firefight the whole way, and it can be hard to... That's
interesting. I mean, I've spoken to people that we work with who are like going in as heads of IT for bigger brands, and they're going in, and it's just they've exponentially grown to like 50 or 30 sites, and they walk in and they're like, how have you even expanded using the same tool system you used when you were at 3 sites to this? And there's no plugins, and all the head office team like pulling their hair out because they're stuck of this sort of like, what do you do? I think the benefit now is there's more like Tenzo and stuff out there that help you with that data, right? Because there's always that challenge of where is everything. So but yeah, I think that's really interesting. Well, we're sort of at the end, near the end. So I was going to say that, to be fair, I've already asked you what the company is about and what it does. Is there anything exciting coming up that you can share that you're doing, or is it?
There's a couple of exciting projects in the wings, but I'm NDA'd on both of them actually, because they're both, I guess, new ventures for the business concerned. So, but yeah, hopefully.
So one of the last questions before I do the general questions is, what do you see the future of tech? Like, what do you see that's coming now?
I mean, that's a big question, isn't it? But I think there's a short and a long term, and I think short term it's just increasingly, hopefully, solving problems.
Yeah, as you said.
And I think tech is getting much better at integrating with each other. And no longer do you need like physical bits of kit that become redundant. So fortunately, that bit's long gone. But like I say, I think there's that divergence in hospitality between the functional and the experiential.
I think you're right.
Increasing levels of automation.
Yeah,
and all these businesses.
You're not going to feel it. That's the thing. You don't want people to feel that level of automation.
No, it's because I think the best example is like McDonald's putting the big kiosks in the screens. Actually, that's just become totally normal now.
Yeah, but do you not think they are slightly lagging behind? They were, so before them it was Toss. Toss were the first people to have kiosks in the UK.
Yeah.
And I had Stephen.
I remember going in and looking at that and being like, wow, okay.
I remember going in and being given a freaking pop stars names. I was Britney Spears twice. That was wonderful. Someone screaming Britney Spears at the top of their voice, and I'm like, "That's my salad, thanks." Because they realised that people would always give the wrong names. So you were given a pop star name, which is hilarious. But just after them was McDonald's, and that's the same kiosk that McDonald's have had for the last 10 years. And if you look at other kiosks now with all the other sort of integrations that are there, I think they are slightly lagging behind. I had William Connors on here. He told me, I didn't know, but McDonald's were the first people to do a KDS. They were the first people. They created the KDS. That kitchen display screen came from them. So they've always been at the forefront. But I find it really interesting. Like, everyone's got QR ordering. They don't. I can order and collect anything I want at any hospitality venue, most around here anyway, at a time, and I can go pick it up. But I don't. For McDonald's, I have to check in so I'm near, so that my food is fresh. So I think there's lots of things that need to change. I
think it's the size of the business, the fact that it's franchisers, they have to be very, very careful.
Of course,
that it's absolutely watertight.
You've got to roll it out properly. But I think still, they did a great job with the kiosk, and you're right. But you could still walk up to a McDonald's and have a chat and get your food. But I think
there's lots of interesting applications for technology, like back of house.
Yeah,
like we put AI-enabled cameras, for example, in the kitchen to look at every order that goes out and then reference it against what it should look like to pick up on errors, because particularly for a delivery business, the last thing you want is incorrect product going out, something missing. Those are the common things. And the dispute rate is huge when it comes to delivery.
Oh yeah, massive.
Just solving that problem using technology is huge.
On that note for you, just as I spoke to them the other day, there's a company that we doing some work with called Solink, and they're putting computer vision into the CCTV of the venue.
Yeah, well, then you start matching structured and unstructured data, and by the time you've got multiple sites, because this only becomes valuable when you can compare one site to another, you can start to decide like, oh, the customers are not looking very happy in this venue,
right?
And then you can link it to the fact that the sales are down, and it's
so much you can do.
Richer data, and that's
so they plug into Toast right now. So you've not only got the transactional data going through and the orders, but what tables are at, so all mapped out to the point that you can do a natural language search on show me your health and safety violations. And it will bring you it will show me if someone, like if there's an accident somewhere, or someone hurts themselves, you then have to spend a day trying to dig out that footage from the CCTV. It will send you an alert on your phone. Yeah. So there's lots of that sort of stuff, even to footfall. We have a client that uses them for football. So you basically put a line at the door, or you put Polygon, and it will track all your footfall. But it's real footfall rather than these...
Well, do you remember the debates we had about putting in footfall counters?
Yes.
And is it going to be an accurate figure because you've got staff coming out, people going in and out to the toilets? Obviously, AI can now differentiate. It knows if it's the same person or if it's a member of staff.
So this is the thing.
So even in that space of time, it's massively...
So that platform I just mentioned, we are speaking to the food halls we work with at the moment to pull out because they have those cameras. There's infrared style, Raspberry Pi cameras that don't really give you the information you need. It gives you an average roughly, but if someone exits that way or whatever it might be, or the same person walks up and down the stairs, they don't know who they are. It's the same person. They just count the click pass. So this tool is very clever. I will show it to you.
Tags, I guess, the people.
I mean, I don't know how. I mean, I don't know if it recognises that's someone specific, but I mean, it understands the footfall in and out. It knows that the silhouette of that person isn't the same as the other. So it's very clever. Okay, so I'm going to do a... you can hear a round of applause now. We normally have it on the headphones, but everyone else will hear the round of applause for Ben. I'm going to do the last question. So the final questions we have are best restaurant.
I'm glad you told me you were going to ask this, because when you work in food, people got... the regular question is, so what's your favourite restaurant? And I hate that question because... it's very much dependent on the mood you're in, who you're with, etc. So it's very hard to pull out.
It's very personal.
Ultimate.
Well, you did share one already earlier, but that was not a good experience.
Yeah. So I thought about it, and one that I really rate for being like really quite a unique experience is the Sea in Hackney.
Okay, what's it called?
The Sea.
Okay,
it's like a fishmonger in West London, and then I think this is where they cured their fish in Haggerston. And it's a tiny place, but you walk in, and it's like a lit catwalk. Yeah. And then one side they have all the shellfish. In all of the tanks, and the other's all the fish curing. So they've got the cod hanging in fridges and stuff. And then And then it's just a curved bar. So there's 12 people. I think.
Okay.
That's the capacity.
Yeah.
And it's just an amazing experience.
Yeah.
From, like the moment that you enter and the food and everything else. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
I will put that in there. Okay. Best burger.
Controversial, isn't it?
It is.
I am spoiled living in Hackney. I have got my go-to, and unfortunately it recently closed, was Lucky Chip.
Okay.
On in Nettle Market. They had an El Chapo burger, which was jalapenos and blue cheese, and it was always really good. But there's another one called La Gomme,
Okay.
in Hackney Church Brewery, which does a pretty epic burger as well. Yeah. But then I also have a weakness for the tater tots that Burger and Beyond do. So
Oh my God.
if I'm getting a delivery order, I'll go Burger and Beyond, because they have these
Burger Beyond is just
ridiculous tater tots.
They are. I mean, we work with them, and the one in Soho is awesome. And they've got a proper menu there now. It's not just burgers, which is awesome. But yeah, I have a problem with tater tots. I was in Arcade the other day and they had the masala tots. I was like, anything that says tots on it, I'm all over it. Amazing. And okay, best hotel.
I mean, if someone else was picking up the bill,
Anyone.
Probably.
Yeah.
But where do I probably have I been like multiple times that I keep going back to? Is like the Pig Group. It's really solid service.
Nice.
And a great food. They have one of the best breakfast tables. Yeah.
Okay. Where are the hotels? Where are the hotels?
They're all over. The one I have been to most often is just outside Bath, but they've got one in, I think, Somerset.
Okay, nice.
They've got like 6 or 7 now. It's like a small chain.
Okay, so nice. And what smaller style, or is it bigger style hotel?
Yeah, no, they're kind of like country hotels.
Okay, nice.
So the one I like in Bath has this amazing like kitchen garden. So they grow a lot of their own produce.
Yeah.
And my daughter was very disappointed when we went last month, because they used to have these pigs.
Yeah.
And you'd go scramping for apples in the orchard and then go and feed them to these ginormous pigs who obviously like loved them. So that was always kind of fun, but there were no pigs this time. So I'm like, come on, where are the pigs?
You need to ask them next time.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to give you that round of applause again. 2 questions for the next guest.
Oh, no, I had to think.
Could be
did
operator, could be marketer.
So I thought I'd do a fun one and a serious one.
That's great.
Did write it down. Here we go. Yeah. So, serious one. What do you think the industry can do to reduce the high failure rate for restaurants?
Okay.
As I mentioned before, is I think 60% first year. By year 5, 80%.
80%.
Yeah, mental.
That is mental.
Mm-hmm. And second one, do you think fish and chips and a Sunday roast are the best examples of British cuisine? And if not, what is?
That's a good one. I like that. What do you think is the answer to that?
Well, I obviously, having been involved in it, I've seen British cuisine evolve, and I would put London like up there with Tokyo and some other leading places in the world as having like the most amazing selection of restaurants.
100%.
From street food to Michelin star. And I think part of the reason for that is because we didn't necessarily have the strongest food culture. We were very open to receiving everything else.
Yes.
But when you go to, and obviously lots of people are aware of this, particularly in hospitality, but when you go to your average person and your average country outside the UK, they still think of British food as fish and chips and Sunday roast.
Yeah.
And sometimes
or afternoon tea.
Afternoon tea.
Yeah. Afternoon tea. Do you like your tea and crumpets and your cucumber sandwiches? Yeah. No.
And the full English breakfast. That's the other one that gets on that list.
Yeah.
So, is that really an accurate representation of British food?
I listened to a podcast the other day and they were saying that they don't think any other country there are others, but where you can literally walk down the street and see 30 different types of cuisine. Like, back when I was at uni, you'd have the curry. I was in Birmingham, so the curry corridor, like in Manchester. I'd go to my friends and do the curry mile. I think the curry mile's still there in Manchester. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, there's lots of other restaurants, but in London, you can walk through Soho or walk through 3 streets and hit 30 different types of cuisine and hit anything. It's amazing. I think the explosion has got even better. I think so. All right, so I'm going to give you another round of applause. You can hear that. There you go. They can hear it too. It's pretty loud now. Let's set it down. Thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you for inviting me.
Please. I don't know if you've got a profile on your website with what you've done, but please put your story in your website because
I need to do that. Yeah.
If you want, I'll take a snippet from here and you can stick it in there and just put you talking about it because the history is freaking awesome. I mean, the brand from the build, from the events to the everything is, I mean, people who know you know it. People who don't know you see you on LinkedIn, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
But the story is awesome, and you need to talk about it. Or just whip out your phone and do a little story, but that's another conversation.
Yeah, maybe I should try and get my head around that. Well, thanks for the nudge.
You have to get off of the cringe factor of seeing yourself, which is.
I've only just got to the stage where I'm doing regular LinkedIn posts.
Oh, that's amazing, which is awesome. And also the content you're putting on there is sometimes controversial, which is nice, and you're making people talk about what you're putting on there. So, but I think give you props to it. So wave goodbye to everyone on the camera and a virtual wave to everyone. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.